I'm Joe Bev, and this is the Joe Bev Show. On this edition of the Joe Bev Show, Brute Ballingham, private detective in The Excruciating Hello, Chapter 3, The Burmese Albatross, Daws Butler's My Dinner with A, and Jack Benny becomes a Minuteman. But first, here's a funny fable about a loudmouth fox.
Penguin, reindeer, and fox were great friends. One day, Penguin and Reindeer found a load of fruit.
Hey, Reindeer, look at all this fruit.
Golly, that sure is a lot of fruit.
Mangoes, papayas, apples, bananas,
Kumquats.
It's a regular fruitacopia.
I think we better keep it a secret.
I think you're right.
On the way home, they met Fox.
Ooh, hello there, Penguin and Reindeer. How are you? Glad to see you. Ooh, let me pinch those little cheeks. All right, you guys, what's with the giggles? Why are you so happy?
Should I tell him, Penguin?
No. Better not.
We really couldn't say.
Come on, you guys. You can trust me. Look at my honest face.
He does have an honest face, Penguin.
That's true. Okay, all right. Okay, you can tell him about the fruit.
Penguin and I found a big basket of fruit. Papayas, mangoes, bananas,
Persimmons.
radishes. Wait, that's not a fruit.
Ooh, what's that fruit you say? I like fruit. Ooh, bananas. Papayas. Oh, delicious. La 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 la.
When they arrived at the village, Fox forgot about his promise and told everyone.
Hey everybody, there's a load of fruit, a big basket of fruit down the road. You turn left, you can't miss it. It's under a tree. There's papayas and mangoes and bananas. It's marvelous, it's stupendous.
Later, when Penguin and Reindeer returned to the place where they had found the fruit, the animals of the village had already been there and eaten it all. That same day, Penguin and Reindeer found another place full of food.
Hey, Reindeer, look at all these vegetables under that tree.
Oh no, here we go again.
And the same thing happened again with Fox.
Come on, you guys. You can trust me. Look at my honest face.
He does have an honest face, Penguin.
That's true.
Angered
Okay,
by these betrayals,
all right.
they decided to teach Fox a lesson. The next day, they told Fox that they had found a lake so full of fish that no effort was needed to catch them. Fox again told everyone in the village about this.
Hey everybody, come quick. There's a lake so full of fish that you can catch all you want. Come on with me.
The next day, Fox came by, covered in cuts and bruises.
Fox,
Yes, Penguin.
what happened? You're all covered in cuts.
And bruises.
It's like this. After telling all the animals about the lake full of fish, everyone, including even the polar bears, went there. But by the time they got there wasn't anything to find. All the fish had been caught.
I suppose they felt deceived.
That's right, Penguin. And that's why they gave me this good beating. I deserved it.
Ouch. That's gotta hurt.
Penguin and Reindeer devised another trick for Fox.
Say, Penguin, you want to play that other trick on Fox?
Nah, Reindeer. I think he's learned his lesson. He is no longer a big mouth anymore.
That's true. He didn't betray us.
And that's why we should trust in Fox.
And forgive him.
And that they did.
Thank you, my friend. La 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 la.
And so, Fox learned that keeping people's trust is very important, and that to get it in the first place, you have to earn it with loyalty. And always keep your word.
My name is Putsy, and I was on my way. I didn't take a cab. I walked. I was to have brunch with an old friend. My heart was pounding, and I could feel cold sweat forming at my temples. It sizzled and dried up in the morning sun, so its dramatic significance was minimal. My remembrance of our past association told me that it wouldn't be that big a deal. We hadn't seen each other for several hours, and I was curious to find out what had transpired in the life of A. My friend's name was A. My destination was a nondescript coffee shop in the 60s that held many memories for us. One memory in particular was shared by both of us. It had lousy coffee, but there were other memories just as unpleasant, and I couldn't wait to hear my friend's voice, charming me with anecdotes that were mundane and untrue. So I walked, it being the most primitive means of self-movement, not because it had any significance, but because I didn't have any cab fare. When I arrived, there was my friend waiting at a table. A was sitting in one chair, and there was another across from him, obviously lousily mine. But I did inquire as to whether it was or not, because one can never be sure of anything in this topsy-turvy world. A had apparently been talking briskly even before I arrived. A's entire life was programmed, and my being a few minutes late annoyed him. So, through my own fault, I had been cheated of hearing his vocal overture. "I'm here, A."
Finally, you missed my vocal overture.
I walked. It takes longer when you walk.
You deprived yourself of several of my most exciting anecdotes, Putsy.
Please continue with what you were saying.
I was talking about Vasily Toputnik.
I don't know him.
Of course not. It's better you don't.
Why?
Because I treasure his friendship and have never allowed myself to consciously share him with another.
What about unconsciously?
Watch yourself. Your tardiness may yet enrage me.
I'll watch myself.
Vasily Toputnik, to those who know him well.
Then there are others.
Yes, Potsy, and I resent them. Vasily is one of the most charming, unassuming, stupid men I have ever known. He shares an empathy with everyone he knows.
Is he friendly? Urbane? Outgoing?
You don't have to contribute to any of the points I made. Go peddle your adjectives in some other parish.
Go on.
It doesn't matter who he's talking to. It could be the supermarket checker. It could be someone checking the air in his tires, or someone to cash out one of his worthless checks, or the Pope.
You're not jealous of the Pope.
Everything works out fine with a conclusion that allows no coda.
Coda?
Coda is a musical expression.
I see. Go on.
I'm not through. A coda comes at the end of a musical work. A coda is a return to something the listener has already heard.
I see. Go on.
A reiteration, a dramatic effect in music. But this is unacceptable to Vasily, and the termination of his scintillating verbiage. He says it once. That's it.
You say he's empathetic?
Empathetic, yes, that's the word to describe Vasily. Empathetic. Very empathetic. Or sometimes just pathetic.
Vasily puts me in mind of a chap I once played lawn tennis with one summer in Shreveport, Louisiana. Before the famous hurricane.
What famous hurricane, Putsy?
The one everybody knows about, eh?
I don't know about it.
Look it up sometime. It was a famous hurricane.
Hurricanes aren't famous. They're destructive. Or horrendous. Movie stars are famous.
Or chocolate chips. The chap I'm referring to was named Emmanuel Cupp. We talked a lot. We didn't have any particular penchant for the subjects we chose to discuss, but the long, leisurely evenings we spent on the fire escape of his tenement went right up to the moment it was condemned. I don't want to go on and on and on or reiterate, but I think that the point I've been trying to make has been made.
When did all this happen?
Before the famous hurricane in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Oh, that was one humdinger of a hurricane. I got color slides of it for my birthday that year.
You said you weren't aware of it. Before, you said that.
Please, Putsy, let's not go on and on and on about this, or reiterate. What we've learnt from this encounter was that an angry Mother Nature kicked up her heels and gave us pause for thought. We've been all over this. We're getting into a sort of reiteration here. I never intentionally reiterate, Putsy. But there are occasions when I do reiterate. I have a penchant for reiterating. I also have a penchant for saying penchant.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I'd have to check it out.
Good.
I will certainly get back to you on this.
On the pension thing?
Right.
What are you thinking about?
Is it really that important, the pension thing, I mean? I've decided I won't get back to you on this.
The pension thing?
The pension thing, right. I would let it go. Which is correct. Let it go or leave it go.
Well...
At any rate, I won't do it.
Not to change the subject, but are we going to order anything?
I'd like that. Waiter, bring us food. It doesn't have to be gourmet.
I like gourmet.
Who asked you? Just bring us anything that isn't creepy-crawly.
So long.
Where are you going?
I've decided not to wait for our questionable repast. Exciting and evocative as it might have been.
Why?
Because never once in our relationship have I found you to be redundant.
This stuns me. I'm hurt. Your accusation pains me, indeed. My well-being is shattered. I have been affected deeply by your sudden thrust of what must have been a long-concealed contempt for me, although previously unexpressed. I am pained indeed.
See what I mean? You're not redundant.
Coming up on the Joe Bev Show, Jack Benny becomes a Minuteman? Friend Ethan. Well, Ethan, you will be surprised, okay, to hear I and the wife took a little trip down to Boston last week to a tea party And I guess you were thinking we will be getting the swelt head over being asked to a tea party in Boston. Well, Ethan, if you think that, you will be 100 miles off the track, because, Ethan, I and Mary ain't the kind that gets a swelled head over being asked anywheres like some of our neighbors up here when they're asked anywheres. So you see, Ethan, even if we had been asked anywheres, we wouldn't have had no swelt head on account of being asked anywheres. Well, last Thursday, I and Mary drove old Bessie down to Boston. Bessie is our horse, you see, Ethan, which is about 13 miles from here to Boston. I mean, Ethan, as the crow flies. Only no crow would ever fly to Boston if he could help it, because all the crows that ever flew to Boston were shot by them Louise tavern keepers to make meals out of, Ethan. Oh, Rochester.
Yes, boss.
Gee up old Bessie for us, will you?
Yes, boss. Evening, Miss Livingston.
Evening, Rochester.
You know, Rochester, it may sound funny, but when I was just a little kid, I had a gorgeous, gorgeous head of golden locks.
You did, boss?
Yeah. In fact, my mother was so proud of them, she gave a curl to every one of our relatives.
Well, you better write to him, boss. It's time to get him back.
Now cut that out. Rochester, is there something wrong with my horse?
No, boss. Just English.
You know, Mary, I never tasted nothing so rotten in my life.
Oh, Jack, it wasn't that bad.
Them meals they have at Louise Tavern, and the prices. 3 shillings for a piece of steak about as big as my eye, and 4 pence for a cup of coffee? It's ridiculous. The streets ain't the only thing about Boston that's crooked, you know. Them tavern keepers is crooked too.
Oh, Jack, Fannie Ewell Hall is all lit up like Charlie Davis on a Saturday night.
Well, let's go inside, Mary. I think it's free.
I bet you knew it was free before we came here.
Hey there, Jackson. Here for the tea party?
No tea.
Well, then we'll have coffee, for heaven's sakes. Now look here, madam. Do you want your tea and slavery?
No, just coffee.
You're a riot, Mary. Madam, no tea shall ever land, baby.
No, but my husband will in about a minute.
Leave me out of this. Oh, waiter. Yes? Oh, not you. Yes, it's me. What of it? Do you want your tea without tax? Are you one of those troublemakers? Now look here, you. And I was just about to plank him one when the door behind us bust open, and a lot of Indians come in yelling, "Everybody down to the Griffin's Wharf. There's going to be a tea party." Only, Ethan, there wasn't Indians at all, but just white folks dressed up like Indians, you see.
Woo, 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 woo. Hi, Mr. Benny.
Dennis, Don, what are you doing here, dressed like Indians?
We're going to a tea party.
Yeah, Jack. You don't want us to drink our tea with tax.
Yeah, they get stuck in your teeth.
A 1, a 2, a Z, a zoo.
And I says to a fella, I says, "Those ain't Indians." And he says, "No, how do you guess that?" And I says, "Because I've seen real Indians many a time." And he says to another fella, "Say, Bill, is there a man who says them ain't real Indians?" And the other fella says, "Gosh, I don't believe it." And they laughed. Only the laugh wasn't on them, Ethan, because those wasn't real Indians after all. And that is only typical of how you can't tell these Boston swelled heads nothing. And I guess if they had ever seen a real Indian, they would have known better than to laugh. Well, I and Mary followed the crowd down to Griffin's Wharf, and them Indians, which was only white men dressed up like Indians, climb onto a ship there and began throwing the cargo into Boston Harbor. And I says, Fred,
Hello, Jack.
what is in them boxes that they're throwing in Boston Harbor?
Why, that's tea, Jack.
Well, why are they throwing it away?
Because they don't want to pay the tax.
That's about as sensible as if I was to write a lot of letters, and then as fast as I wrote them, I tore them up because I didn't want to pay for a stamp. Somebody ought to catch heck for this.
What are you, some kind of Tory, Jack?
I see you're only trying to kid me, Fred. But no, I'm a Congregationalist and a loyal subject of the King, King George Rex.
I always thought you were a Tory, Jack.
And a lot of the fellas who was with him give him a laugh because he hadn't been able to kid me, you see. Well, after a while, he says the Indians seemed to be about through. And I says yes, only they wasn't Indians, and the laugh was on him again. And he seen it wasn't no use to try and kid me. Gee, one good thing, with all that tea in the harbor, the prices will go up. Before that happens, I better get some. Maybe if they give it to me, I can put it in my vault. More tea for me. Friend Ethan, no matter what a married man does in this world, he gets in wrong. And I suppose if I was to die tonight, Mary would bawl me out for not having let her know that I was going to do it. And just because I joined the Minutemen the other evening, she's been acting like as if I had joined the Baptist Church. And I bet you were saying, what the heck is a Minuteman? Now just a minute. Well, Ethan, I will tell you. The other night, you see, I says to Mary, I think I'll drive over to Lexington and get Bessie shod. Bessie is our horse, you see, Ethan. Well, she says, you will do nothing of the kind, because all you want to do in Lexington is get a snootful. And if you think I'm going to wait up all night while you get boiled, well, you have got another guest coming. She says the last time you had Betsy shod, the neighbors are talking about it yet. And I says, do you mean because I and Charlie Davis was singing and having a little fun? And she says, no, because nobody wouldn't call that singing, and do you call it a little fun when you brought Bessie upstairs with you to show me how well she had been shod at 3 a.m. in the morning, answering me that which is only her way of exaggerating things, Ethan. Because we didn't bring Bessie only as far as the stairs, and I only did it because Charlie had been drinking a little too much, and I didn't want to irritate him, because the way to handle drunks, you see, is to not irritate them. They only get worse. You can't tell a woman that, and they think the way to handle drunks is to look them in the eye and say, aren't you ashamed of yourselves? And that only irritates them more. Well, I says I'm not going to have no horse of mine going around half shod all the time. And Mary says, well, I'm not going to have no husband of mine going around half the time half shot all the time. And I says I will not go near Charlie Davis this time, because I have learnt my lesson. And she says, all right, if you will promise not to go near Charlie Davis, you can go. And when I got to Lexington, I thought I would stop in at the tavern a minute, just to say hello to the boys. Because if a fella doesn't stop in the tavern and say hello to the boys, well, who are just as good as he is, well, they're liable to say that he has a swelled head and is too proud to stop in the tavern and say hello to the boys, who are just as good as he is, you see. Well, I didn't have any idea that Charlie Davis would be there because I had told Mary that I wasn't going to go near him. And just because I had said that, I can't be expected to sneak into town like I was some kind of a convict. Can I, Ethan? The tavern was crowded, and they had got a good start. And the long and short of it was, the first person I seen was Charlie Davis. And he says, hello there, Pink Whiskers. You're just in time to join the Minutemen, which is only a nickname that he has for me, because my whiskers are red-brown. No, I says, I cannot join anything tonight, fellows, because I must go right back home. And then he says, if you don't join the Minutemen, then someday you'll have no home to go home to. And I says, well, what do you mean? I won't have no home to go home to. And he says, because the British are going to burn down all the homes of we farmers, because we will not sell them any food. But first, you had better have a drink. Well, Ethan, a fella don't like to be a sissy about taking one drink, does he? And then I says, now, fellows, I must go home. And then a couple more fellows come in. And then they said, you won't go home until we have brought you a drink and elected you to the Minutemen, will you? Will you? And I said, no, but I must go home right after that. Well, then we got to singing, and we was going pretty good. Sweet Adeline, my Adeline, you're the flower of my heart, sweet Adeline, sweet Adeline. And after a while I said, now fellas, I really must go home. And Charlie Davis says to me, before you go, I want to have you shake hands with my friend Tom Duffy, who is here from Boston. And he will tell you all about the Minutemen. And you can join tonight. But look out, or he will drink you under the table, because he is the worst fish in Boston. And I says, sure, only I've got to be going home soon, because you remember what happened last time. And I would like to see anybody from Boston drink me under the table. And I bet you and I, Ethan, if that fella is a fish, then my grandmother is the Prince of Wales. So let me tell you what happened. After we had drank about 4 or 5, I seen he was getting sort of white, and I says, well, Boston, let's settle down now to some good steady drinking. And he says, listen. And I says, what? And he says, listen. And I says, what? And he says, do you know my wife? And I says, no. And he says, listen. And I says, what? And he says, she's the best little woman in the world. And I says, sure. And he says, what did you say? And I says, when? And he says, you have insulted my wife, the best little woman in the world. And he begun to cry, Ethan. And we had only about a quart. And wouldn't that knock you for a cockeyed ghoul, Ethan? Only I guess you aren't surprised, knowing how much I can hold, without feeling any effects. Well, I was feeling pretty good on account of drinking the pride of Boston under the table and not feeling any effects. Only I was feeling good like a fella naturally feels. And the fellows kind of made a lot of fuss on account of me drinking him under the table, so I couldn't very well have gone home then. And after a while, Charlie Davis made a speech and welcomed me into the Minutemen. And so I'm a Minuteman, Ethan, but I can't exactly explain it, you see. Well, not until I see Charlie again, because, well, he didn't make it very clear that night.